And now when you tell people, right, here's the prescription. When you sit down at dinner tonight with whoever you're with, or whoever friends you're hanging out with, and you're telling them, hey, I learned about CrossFit today, and I learned about this prescription. Constantly varied functional movement performed at a high intensity. So you're going to say that to them. Constantly varied functional movement performed at a high intensity. That's what I learned today. Ha, 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 ha. I'm better than you. Right? That's a lot of words there. And we'll break this down, and no, obviously don't say that to whoever you're telling that you do CrossFit for. But again, let's break these down. Functional movement. What maybe comes to your mind when you hear the word functional movement? This is again, pillar of what we do. Who are these people? They go to our gym. That's Mo, it's Bob. They're doing some functional movements. So if we were to break these down a little bit more specifically, this idea that a functional exercise, a movement pattern, originates from here. Your core, it's not just this, your abdominals, your six-pack muscles. We know that from everything that we do here on a day-to-day basis. It's your spine. It's how your pelvis and your hips attach to your spine. It's how your shoulder girdle attaches to your spine, and how a movement, a functional movement, integrates all this at once. And the energy that we produce from here goes out to here, goes out to here, goes out to here, to some extent. And that's what we call just basic biomechanics, how your body functions, your bones, your muscles, and then how that generates energy. A functional movement has the ability to create power. And we'll talk about what power is, right? Just more force. So for example, if we talk about a maybe non-functional exercise, I put quotations here because, for example, if I'm at a Globo gym and I'm doing leg extensions or a bicep curl, right? I wouldn't necessarily say it's not functional because that might have a purpose for somebody. So I'm not going to knock down that stuff at all. That's not my mindset of how I look at things. But when it comes to the terms of power output, right? Something, for example, like a full body air squat compared to a leg extension, well, you would know the difference, right? Do 10 of those versus 10 leg extensions. Which one's going to make you feel a little bit more fatigued or maybe breathe a little bit more? Potentially, you can apply everything that you do here outside of the gym. Jeannie's saying, I couldn't even get up and off the ground before I started working out with you, right? So all the exercises, the way we develop the program for you, allows you just to be able to get up and off the ground, move around a little bit better on a day-to-day basis, maybe do other activities that you like to do, right? That's one thing CrossFit encourages. Go and play new sports. So can we take this to our lifestyle? CrossFit does have 9 foundational movements you would learn at a level 1. So 3 of them are squatting patterns: overhead squat, front squat, back squat. Air squat, overhead squat, front squat, not the back squat. Press, push jerk, deadlift, and a sumo deadlift high pull, and a med ball clean. So these are basic exercises, all within the sagittal plane. We talked about planes of motions within my MFP Education Center stuff. But basically, that's just straight up and down stuff. Those are the things we want to learn and master before we get sexy. So they have these foundational movements, and then we have a whole nother list of functional movement patterns: carrying things, crawling, jumping and landing, hanging on a bar. Can we standardize these exercises? Do they have a clear point A, point B, point C? Start, middle, and end. So if we were to create this massive competition to test the fittest people on earth, we need to be able to standardize the movement so we could judge point A, B, and C clearly. So for example, a squat. Stand up, fully hip crease below the knee, so I know, hey, that rep is good, and then I would fully stand up at the top, bang, standardized. Then did CrossFit create any of these exercises? What do you think? No. CrossFit did not create anything new. Greg literally just took components of all these different elements and he made it one thing. So at MFP, how do I think about functional movement patterns? Is it just these 9 foundational things? No. We do a lot of other things, and we'll get into that later on. Longevity, structural balance, these are my personal approaches to integrating functional movement. But this is my favorite one here. Constantly varied, right, Matteo? I love the variety, right? That's one component here of the CrossFit methodology. Click, 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 go back. Variance is the number one thing that really separates the CrossFit methodology or program compared to what you would see on a day-to-day basis. This is what, my personal opinion, is what a lot of pseudo fitness programs maybe want to take from CrossFit. Not saying that's a bad thing, that's a good thing. More people that want to try to do CrossFit stuff have this idea of variance is good for the greater good of everybody. We want this. We want to have this range and ability to work in all these movement patterns. Be able to lift light, medium, heavy, move in short distances, medium distances, long distances, different rep schemes. This creates this model of varied progression, because progression is important. We want to start from here, and we want to slowly work our way up to here. Linear progression is a very typical model we would learn in our textbooks. Basically, hey, if I want to learn a pull-up, I would have this week-to-week, very structured, day-to-day basis of getting that pull-up. Now, we want everybody to have some sort of goal and progression for a movement. But we got that movement, and let's just place it up here. This could be 6 months, this could be a year, this could be 5 years before you achieve that. 10 years. And during this time of achieving maybe there, we can scatter plot all these different other movement patterns, ranges, stimuluses, things that maybe support that in a different way to get to that progress. And really, that's the idea with CrossFit. We want to introduce more things to your physical potential. And again, think about how we create variance in the gym on a weekly, daily, monthly, yearly basis. Do we still achieve the same results? To some extent, yes, but we achieve more results in different ways. Third one, intensity, right? You like the intensity. That's why you love that feeling of just. So Pete, you tell me.
Yeah. So high intensity is just when you make a really big face like that.
Yeah. Is that what comes to your mind maybe when you hear the word intensity? We all heard, HIIT training, high intensity interval training. So when we combine these movement patterns, we combine this idea of variance, we combine this idea of intensity in CrossFit, what are we really looking at? This idea of power. Force times distance over time. How much force can you produce over long distances? How quickly can you produce that force? We're going to learn that today during our workout. It's all relative. Your power is going to be different than his power. Maybe. I don't know, John. I mean, they're pretty powerful. Right? Jen, your power is going to be different than Mateo's. Okay? We have this idea of power. It's all relative. What are we physically able to do? Now, you might think about when I'm doing something intense, you might feel your heart rate and breathing. Right? That might be a factor to your intensity. Your physical fatigue, we could think about that as your intensity. How about the idea of efficiency of your movement? How does that play a role? Doing deadlifts. Right, that's intense. I'm maybe inefficiently creating power, or if I'm my movement's beautiful, I'm efficient, I'm effective. So your movement quality plays a huge role into how your power output is going to be. So that's why we're really, I mean, any common sense of a trainer would be really adamant about your movement quality, but it's going to play a role into how you perform. So again, your efficiency. What are benefits? There's physiological and wellness components we'll touch on in a little bit. But is always high intensity a good thing? Do I want to maybe have that Pete face every single day? Maybe you just naturally make that face every time you work out, which you probably do, Pete. Actually, you actually do. I know that for a fact. But do we want to maybe feel like that feeling when you go to the dark place, right? Because that might be really high intensity. That's maybe what we want to achieve to some extent. But that's not necessarily the best formula every day. And obviously we know that. There's things that we preach here